ads, but she's taking a nap. So I have to, grab stuff, put it in the car for her, and then I'll be back. This meeting is being live streamed. I can see that. Okay. We have a yellow shield. Why do we have a yellow shield?
As soon as I start doing it, usually I get a yellow shield.
Huh.
Wow, this is taking. We're gonna be
What's
late getting on. This is taking a long time.
unencrypted connections? Okay.
Oh no, we are on. It's odd. I have another screen that says preparing to stream. Live stream the meeting, and here we are. That's very interesting. I see us on both, but the Safari says unable to stream. Interesting. That's very strange. How can that be? I mean, can it be both? It can't be both. It can't be on and not working all at the same time.
I see us on Facebook.
I do too. And I see us on YouTube. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, I am well behind doing this, so this is the time.
Yeah, you're live. Yeah, you're live on YouTube as well. Okay, good.
No,
Okay.
be behind, that's for sure. Pages. Oops, here we go. Let's see when we get cut off here. Be careful. Once I go to, see if I can get it all. Because we haven't been here for a while. There's a chance. Good. Now I got it. Now I got stopped. Okay. Now I got stopped. Probably won't even remember where I got stopped. So I was picking and choosing a bit. 98. That's not bad. Okay. What do you say? We do this thing. What? Let's do this thing, shall we?
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know. It's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight? A loyal man who brings a job a fresh new point of view. But it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed? It's to which we must be true. It's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? Who'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy and the change that's overdue. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
Welcome, 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 welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, North American continent, Western Hemisphere, on this planet Earth, the only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect, back live with you after a holy holidays break. And back with you live for the 7th of April, 2024. A Lehigh Valley, by the way, that has seen itself a very, very active weather, atmospheric, earth situation here in the last week or so. Wearing my Tesla t-shirt today because a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is so science based. Lots of science to discuss in the midst of politics this week, or after these, really the 2 weeks that we've missed you. I know two weeks is a lot of time to take away from something like this. This kind of forum, this kind of platform, this type of broadcasting, 2 weeks is a long time to stay away. And I shouldn't say so much that we stayed away as much as it was Palm Sunday and Easter. And I just didn't think they were appropriate times to be broadcasting. You should have all been, well, you should have done whatever the heck you wanted to do, to be honest. But I also didn't think it was proper to be broadcasting during this. These are times to be with family or do the Easter egg hunt, do the tell the kids that the Easter bunny was there, or church services, synagogue for Passover, mosque, whatever it is that you worship, if you worship at all. That of course is an ultimate personal choice, and a personal liberty, personal freedom type of thing. But that said, so I know that 2 weeks is a long time to be away from you. We are very happy to be back with you. Very, very happy to be back with you. And it's been a very busy 2 weeks. I can tell you one thing that 2 weeks does to soak up a lot of stress and whatnot. And that is that not 20, I don't know, when did we start rebooting everything, George? About 25 minutes ago. I had to do a forced hard restart of the whole system. So we had to do that, and that's been a pain in the where. Oh, and there's Daisy barking. So that's I have to tell you that story too, folks. So that's an interesting one that happened too. But so 2 weeks of non-activity took its toll on the computer system. We had to do that. I'm still fixing things live right here, and I'm doing a very poor job of it. But we're still fixing things. So let me just tell you this quick story. If you recall, 2 weeks ago, our last program would have been St. Patrick's Day, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was St. Patrick's Day. Yeah. There's Daisy again. She's not happy. Well, that's not true. She's happy. She just wants to go outside. She wants to be silly, go outside and run around. Let me see. Yes, it would have been St. Patrick's Day. And at the very beginning of the program, I was talking to you about how Daisy was really being just off the charts, sort of crazy downstairs. And so just this week, someone on Facebook dropped a comment on the program, one of the places that we shared, and said, I can't listen to any program that denigrates women. And I'm like, well, I don't even know what you're talking about. And I mean, it bothered me, like it bothered me. Like I can't say that it didn't get to me, because it did. So I'm thinking to myself, when would I have ever said something during the program where someone would have thought that I'm denigrating women? And I couldn't think of it to really honestly to save my life. And now let me just say, as an aside, if somebody takes something that I say in a certain way, that's on them. No one ever has to agree with me. Ever has to agree with me. All I ask is that we listen, or that you listen, and that we have a discussion with each other. Debate breeds understanding, and it breeds togetherness, because we hear each other. We hope we hear each other. So I thought to myself, well, if he took something that I said about women's reproductive rights or women's health care or something of that sort in the wrong way, well, then, I suppose I could understand that, but I'm really trying to figure out what the heck he was on about. And I keep saying he because there's something about the tone of the message that made me think that it was a gentleman. So, and I could be wrong. So I went back, and right out of the gate, right at the top of the program, when George and I were discussing and I think Franz was still here as well, when we were just sort of BSing back and forth, pre-show, sharing all that fun stuff, I was telling both of them how Daisy was just being crazy downstairs. She was just barking like you wouldn't believe, and squeaking and playing with a toy, and she was just being crazy downstairs. And and as I watched that, I watched the closed captioning of it on Facebook, the automatic closed captioning, which, as I'm looking at my own program right now, isn't working, which bothers me a great deal. And I realized that that's what the gentleman was seeing, that he was seeing that he must have joined the program, or it hit Facebook Live in the middle of that discussion, where all I was then referring to was she's nuts, she's mental, she's being crazy. Well, the she is our dog downstairs. So if by some stretch of the imagination, sir, or ma'am, to be honest, because I don't, as I said, I don't know, it's our dog, Daisy. In fact, she's being a bit nuts now, which is, it's what Daisy does. Daisy's really good at being nuts. She's 2. She's still pretty high energy for 2, even for 2. She's still pretty high energy. And she's also quite excited that Kristen has just come home. George mentions that at least I didn't say she was a B. Well, that's true. It's very strange. I've always thought, I know that that's actually a semi technical, if you will, term to refer to female dogs, but I've always found it to be incredibly denigrating. And I've never referred to a female dog that way. They're just female dogs. They're just girls. They're, just the same thing. And, look, she can be nuts. She's still kind of puppy-ish, she's got puppy in her. It's fine. But it occurred to me, I know that this story seems really ridiculous. Like, why am I wasting so much time on it? Because it just kind of bothered me, because I wouldn't, people can disagree with me, and they do, and they should. If they disagree, they should disagree. That's a good thing. Debate breeds understanding. It breeds an exchange of ideas and hopefully facts. So if the gentleman disagrees with me on something, God bless him. But I do hate the idea that I would be taken out of context that way. But then again, when you're on the air for 3 hours, something is going to get lost in translation. If somebody dives in, in the middle of a rant, they might miss something. Or if they are trying to take the program in smaller bits on the YouTube channel, you might lose something along the way. But anyway, that's either here nor there, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. But it was interesting. I thought maybe some of you might find it entertaining. I don't know. I found it entertaining. I found it bothersome. I found it irritating. And I took some personal offense to it all at the same time. There's a lot going on there, isn't there? Yeah. So there's that. Let's just say that. So science. Let me get to the business end of the program. My brain is a little all over the place today, because we haven't been here with you for 3 weeks. And while I do find this to be a bit like riding a bike, I do notice that my train of thought, the outline of business that I have to do on this program in my head does get a bit scrambled when I'm not with you for a while. Plus, I've got a lot going on here. I'm monitoring. I'm there. It's a very busy period right now. I'm not exactly sure why things are so busy, but they're quite busy. Let's just get to the business end of the program. This is the Kennedy Effect, live with you for the 7th of April, 2024. It is now spring, and actually today it actually feels like spring outside. And for those of us here in the Lehigh Valley, If you are here with me in the Lehigh Valley, do not fear the bright round object up in the sky. I know we haven't seen much of it in the past 2 weeks or so, but it's okay. It's always been there. It was just obstructed by clouds and rain. Don't fear it. It's okay. It's quite all right. It's called the sun, and it's actually out today. And if anybody, it's I've walked a dog a few times today, very thankfully, because it is so nice out. That I actually got sun. I am that pale that I actually got sun on April 7th. I actually got color on me. That's frightening. Actually also says something about the condition of our sun at the moment, and relationship to the Earth's atmosphere, but that's a whole different topic for a different day. So don't fear it. It's okay. You'll be fine. We have shared the program to about 100 places on Facebook before I got cut off. But that doesn't mean that you can't share the program. You certainly can. Anywhere that you wish, anywhere that you feel it's appropriate, and maybe even some places that you don't. We have shared to about 100 places so far, including probably about a dozen new internet radio groups that we are proud to be part of. And we thank every single one of them. I can't list them all off right now, but we have been accepted into quite a number of these internet radio groups, and it's awesome. They provide platforms for people to share their content, pretty much no strings attached, no fees and stuff. Just don't swear, don't say, disgusting things, don't stuff pretty much normal common sense stuff. And so they have allowed us to be part of their groups. So thrilled to be able to be part of them as well. The program is now reaching easily over 500,000 people. In fact, we're approaching 600,000. We went from 500 to 600 in a pretty darn short time. That's very exciting. So wherever you might be on Facebook, if you have allowed us to be part of your corner of the Facebook universe, your own personal timeline, private group, public group, local, regional, national, global, small, large, small, whatever it might be, if you have allowed us to be part of your corner of the Facebook universe, we are immensely grateful to you. We couldn't do it without you. We just could not do it without you. You can stay right where you are and continue to watch and listen. If you're getting the kiddos ready for school tomorrow, getting ready to get back to work, whatever it might be, you can stay right there and listen, and right along with us. You can call the program, be part of it later on. If you would like to come over, however, you can come to my own personal Facebook. My name's right on the screen. That's where I'll see your comments. We can say hello to you. I can see your comments, read them. We can talk about them. You can ask questions. You can agree with me, disagree, yell at me in all caps, whatever it might be that you want to do. Come over to my Facebook, my name. It's right on the screen, and it's in Georgia Square as well. I'm pointing to Georgia Square as if you know what I'm doing. Right there. Come on over. You can watch and be part of the conversation there. However, if you're not interested in doing that and you just want to listen, stay right where you are. And again, to everybody who has allowed us to share onto your Facebook platform, thank you, thank you, thank you. We couldn't do it without you. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. It is really, really, really nice to be back with the Hot101.net family, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all around, below, and above planet Earth. One of the originators, one of the very first global internet radio stations, Hot101.net. We are proud to be part of the Hot101.net family. Our name is our web address. You can go right there, Hot101.net, bring it on up, and you start listening. But you don't need the main web page to do it too. You can use our apps, Apple App Store for Apple devices, Google Play for Android, and the Tune In radio app. Go up to the search bar, type in hot101.net, and you're listening. Again, one of the amazing, amazing, amazing things about the apps for hot101.net, no registration, no extra passwords, no retina scan, blood typing, give up your firstborn, credit card imprint, none of that stuff. You download the app, you tap it, it opens, you're listening, period. It's that simple. It is that simple. And we think you should be. And also, of course, and there's nowhere that you can't listen. Anywhere below, above, on planet Earth. If you can get an internet signal, he said, you can listen to hot101.net. It's that simple. If you can connect to the internet, you can listen. Desktops, laptops, tablets, phones, Bluetooth it to speakers, earbuds, headphones, Bluetooth it in your car, which I think is a really great place to do it. Cars have pretty good stereo systems. Bluetooth it right in the car. And of course, you can tell Alexa to play hot101.net. We continue to be broadcasting on the TCP Media Group, and very humbled and proud to do so. It continues to be a very, very important media and information outlet across the Facebook universe right here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the Lancaster area. And of course, our sponsor is the PayGive app, www.paygive.org, a financial transaction app. The way these apps make money is they charge you a fee for transferring money. Well, what's different about PayGive is you can tell them to take a percentage of that fee and donate it to a cause, charity of your choice: children's charities, health-related charities, veterans charities. My personal preference would be animal charities. One of the ways a society is judged is how it protects those that cannot protect themselves. That's why I've always been partial toward the animal charities. We hope you will be too. The PayGive app, that's how it works. We think you should be part of it. We think you should be using it. We recommend that you use it. If it didn't work, I wouldn't talk about it. I'd rather have no sponsors than plug a not good one. This is a good one. We hope that you'll check them out. Paygive.org, www.paygive.org, and the PayGive app. When you buy things, you have to pay for it. Why not give while you do it? Phone line is open, but we'll go through our opening thoughts as well. Very, very happy that George is here to start the program. It's always a better program when George is here. I'm a better host when George is here. He yet again talked me down off the ledge of throwing the computer across the room when I needed to reboot everything and restart everything, and talked me off the ledge, so to speak. He has a remarkable way of doing that. But it was not, it's just always better when George is around. There's going to be some exciting news about this program coming up in about a month. Actually, less than a month now. I'm simply going to tease it and leave it right there. Some exciting news about the expansion and a new way to consume the program. But we're not going to get too deep into that right now. It's coming. Get excited. I'm excited. I'm also nervous and apprehensive, which I guess is a good thing. It means I'm alive. It's a new way to consume the program. It's going to be more of the program. We hope you'll be a part of it, but let me just put that tiny little seed into the ground right now, and hopefully it will germinate over the next 20, what do we have, George? 29 days, 30 days, 29 days, something like that. So we're excited about that as well. 6:26 are almost halfway through our first hour already, and we have accomplished almost nothing. Let me get only I could do such a thing. Let me just also talk quickly about a lot of science is happening in our world right now, and in our areas, in our remotely close areas. First off, we had almost a summer's worth of rain this past week. Actually, not even in a week, in about a 3-day period. There is still flooding in some places in the Lehigh Valley and New Jersey. And it's I want to say it's not normal, but it's becoming normal. And that should be a frightening thing. When you get a summer's worth of rain in 3 days, that's not normal. Again, as I said, I think it's becoming normal, sadly, because the damage done to the atmosphere, to the climate by our activities as a species, as by far the single most dominant species on the planet, we have already irrevocably, irreparably, it might be making words, the damage is irreparable. I think I'm making words. We've already changed the climate of the planet. And again, I would refer you to Neil deGrasse Tyson's Cosmos from several years ago. I'm now going to forget what year that it came out. It was pre-COVID, of course. It could be as late as 2018. You can easily find it on YouTube. The scene of him walking on a beach, with a dog, and Dr. Tyson is walking in a straight line. The dog is crisscrossing in front of him, and he uses this as an analogy between climate and weather. Now, a lot of folks on the right have tried to blur the distinctions between weather and climate. The infamous yet profoundly ignorant statement, speech, when Chuck Grassley went to the floor of the Senate and said that this global warming thing is a hoax. Look, I made a snowball. And I'm pretty sure it was Chuck Grassley. I might have that wrong now that I'm thinking more about it. I may have that incorrect. It might have been a different senator. But I'm pretty sure, I thought it was Grassley, but if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. I'm wrong a lot. I'm human. 2014? That's how far along ago that was. 10 years ago. Ooh, crikey. I have no concept of the passage of time. Gosh almighty. But anyway, he took a snowball onto the floor of the Senate and said, this global warming thing's a hoax. It's snowing outside right now. And so Dr. Tyson was trying to illustrate the difference between weather and climate. The climate changes slowly and, generally speaking, irrevocably over time. The weather changes daily. The weather might change multiple times in a day. There is a joke in PA. I don't know what makes PA so different, to be honest. But that if you don't like the weather, wait 20 minutes and it'll change. I don't think PA is unique in that, by the way. But it does seem to be a bit of a joke, for a Pennsylvania type joke, although I can't quite understand why that, because it's like that a lot of different places. But Yeah, that's so weather and climate. And so the weather this week was horrible. I mean, it was just an entire summer's worth of rain in 3 days. And you might think to yourself, well, that's weather because today the sun is out. And that's true. But the Lehigh Valley, especially, seems to be caught in this very wet pattern. We may not have had a terribly severe winter. We did have our share of snow and ice. Very, very pretty snows. Stay home and work from home a couple of snows that had to be shoveled, plowed. We also had a lot of rain. It was a very wet winter. It's also windy here in ways that I simply do not remember when I was a kid. I simply just don't remember the Lehigh Valley being so windy. Like substantial, we should be putting wind turbines around the Lehigh Valley at an extraordinary rate because we could probably power the valley on them. It's windy here nearly all the time. The air is almost never still. And when you can remember growing up in a place, and it could be anywhere, where you can remember what the weather was like when you were younger and being older and now know that it is profoundly different and that those differences are now consistently different. It was drier here when I was a kid. It's wet all the time. It used to be, of course, there were always windy days, but this constant double-digit mile-an-hour wind that seems to whip through the Lehigh Valley didn't used to be here. Those are climate changes. The weather can change from hour to hour, day to day, week to week, but climate changes slowly and steadily over time. And to think that getting a summer's worth of rain in 3 days is just weather is ill-informed at a minimum. It's probably way more than that. But I will try to be a little bit more respectful and just say it's ill-informed. These are the results of climate change. Some of the climate change that has happened already to Earth is irreparable. It is irrevocable. The goal is and should be to make sure that we don't make more irreparable change. I was reminded by listening to a radio show trying to sleep that the first discussions of climate change go back to the late 1800s, before there really was such a division, I guess you will, of science called climate science or environmental science, before we even had airplanes. Scientists were already thinking, because of the Industrial Revolution, that we're throwing all of this matter up into the air, and that, car exhaust, fossil fuel exhaust is not purely gaseous. It has incredibly tiny particulate matter in it. That's why you have soot on things if you live close to a factory. It's not purely gas. There is particulate matter in it, and it blocks the sun. It helps trap heat. The planet Venus is the example of what could happen to this planet. This is just science. And the first warnings and discussions of this go back to the late 1800s. We now know about the internal scientific papers written by environmental scientists employed by what is now ExxonMobil in the late 1950s, where those internal scientists were telling the board, the stockholders, and the real decision makers inside that mega monster corporation. And it was a mega monster corporation in the 50s. It's now just even larger because we've allowed it to happen. Where those scientists were saying we're looking at permanently changing the climate of this planet if we continue to burn these fossil fuels. And instead of these supposed, smart industrial giants saying, well, maybe we should switch the focus of our company from fossil fuels and even in the late 50s, by the way, we had solar technology. Was not nearly as refined as it is today, but we had wind and we had tidal, water power. Instead of one of these supposed captains of industry being smart enough to say, what if we took a percentage of our profits and slowly each year began to move our company away from fossil fuels and into green energy? And if we did it first, we would dominate the industry. Capitalism, right? But instead, they took the lazy way out and suppressed the science. The same way the tobacco industry suppressed the devastating effects of smoking and lied about it. So what we saw here in the Lehigh Valley with the rain is not weather. It's climate. Because it's different than it was decades ago. And it's not temporary. These are permanent change trends, from drier to wetter, from a normal spring to cooler deeper in the spring, hotter deeper into the fall. These are permanent changes. They are likely irreparable, but we can stop those changes from going even further. We can stop them from becoming so irreparable that our own race doesn't, our own species, the human species, doesn't survive. And even if you want to take all of that out of it, you don't believe any of it. Let's just say you don't believe any of it. You think it's all bunk. This particular fact is inescapable. And it is in itself its own form of climate change. And that fact is this: 96% of all the living things on Earth. No, take that back. I have to correct myself. I said that incorrectly. 96% of all the mammal life on Earth, mammal hair. Mammals have hair. It's the easiest way to think of it. That's not in and of itself even universal as well. We are warm-blooded. We breathe air. We have hair. It's generally speaking the best way to think of mammalian life. 96% of all the mammalian life on Earth, mammals, are humans and the livestock that we grow to feed ourselves. 96%. The elephants, the lions, the hippos, the whales, birds, of all the mammals on Earth, 96% of them are us humans and the livestock that we grow for food. That in and of itself is its own climate change. The planet's approaching 8 billion people. It's not capable of supporting them unless we continue to pursue science to give us better, more efficient ways to grow food, to lessen our dependence on livestock for meat, and to electrify everything and stop burning fossil fuels. There will always be a need for fossil fuels, by the way. The Vaseline jelly that you have in your nightstand to help cure dry skin is petroleum based. Plastics are petroleum based. Oil and fossil fuel petroleum products are used in pharmaceuticals, in prescription medicines, in makeup, in clothing, in many paints, many different things. And that use will probably always be there. But we don't have to continue to burn it for electricity. We simply don't. We just have to have the wherewithal, the guts, if you will, as a society to say we're not going to do this anymore. And let us also remember, fossil fuel industry in 2023 recorded its highest profits ever, largest gross and net profits. Some of those profits being the highest by any individual corporation in the history of man. And yet we give them hundreds of billions in free dollars. State of Pennsylvania alone, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania alone, gives the fossil fuel industry $4 billion a year for free, for nothing. We just hand them $4 billion while they continue to extract the gas, natural gas, right out from under our feet and send it in pipelines to put on ships in Philadelphia to send overseas. And they pay nothing. In fact, we give them $4 billion to do it. With all of the subsidies that are given to the fossil fuel industry in the United States, gas should be about $1 a gallon, maybe $1.50. Instead, it's going to continue to creep toward $4 because the Russians and the Saudis don't want the president reelected. And everybody, one of the quickest ways to piss off Americans is to raise their gas prices. One of the quickest ways to really cramp them in the cost of living is raising gas prices. Saudi government, we certainly know the Russian government, doesn't want President Biden reelected. So you're slowly seeing gas prices creep up. And I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked if gas, especially in certain parts of this country, California, New York, especially Long Island, New York, hit $6, $7, $8 a gallon right around election time. Its own form of election interference. So that was kind of the week in climate and weather here in the Lehigh Valley. We also had a really important, two important scientific stories that I do want to touch on. Obviously, tomorrow is the total solar eclipse. One of the really amazing things about our solar system is that the sun, the distance of the Earth to the moon is about 250,000 miles. 40 times further away is the sun. And they are spaced just perfectly apart so that when the moon passes in front of the sun, it completely covers it. The odds of that type of coincidence are, no pun intended, astronomical. But our moon and sun are just far enough away from each other that when the moon passes in front of the sun, it covers the sun. And we will be having a total solar eclipse tomorrow. The Lehigh Valley is not in the path, what they call the path of totality. If you just Google eclipse 2024, eclipse April 8, eclipse path of totality, I'm sure there's 1,000 different ways that you could look it up. You will find where the path of totality is, where you can literally see the moon pass in front of the sun and perfectly cover it, so that all you see is the corona, which is really what the coolest part of any eclipse is. It also reminds us how small we are. We might be the only intelligent life that we know of in the universe. We're not, in this casual observer's opinion. We are not. We might be the only intelligent life that we know of, but it also should remind us how small we are. There were times, of course, in the past, the medieval times, if you will, that the scientific belief was that the Earth was the center of the entire universe, that we were dead set in the middle and everything revolved around us, until we learned that we ourselves were moving around other things, not the least of which is our own sun. And we thought the sun was the center of the universe because, after all, it's ours. It has to be special. And we found out that our sun is actually quite an average star. A perfectly average star that happens to have a mature solar system around it that contains life. But nearly every star has a planet or more around it. And many of those are in the zone that could support life. But these eclipses are a reminder to us that we are just one astronomical body in a solar system made up of millions, if you want to break it down to each asteroid, comet, Kuiper belt object, so Oort cloud object, and so on and so on. And that we are all moving around each other, held together by the sun's gravity. The Earth, third rock from the sun, the moon revolving around the Earth, the solar system itself, in our particular arm of the Milky Way galaxy, spinning around the center of the galaxy. The galaxy itself is moving. In fact, we're moving on a collision course with the Andromeda galaxy. Don't worry, folks, it's not happening for another about 4 billion years. I don't think we'll be around to see it. But all of these things are in motion. And it's a very interesting mental reset to go outside at night, look up at the stars, see the planets, know the difference between the two, by the way, and realize that we are just a very, very small part of all of it. One of the most interesting things from the original cosmos, Dr. Carl Sagan from 1980, was his cosmic calendar, where he took all of known history from the Big Bang up to what was then, of course, 1980. And he kind of condensed it all into a recognizable Gregorian calendar for us to absorb. And that everything, and the very important thing that he showed us, was the very last second of the very last day, December 31st, 1259, where all of Earth's history resided, all of human history, everybody we'd ever known, everybody we'd ever learned about, heard of, read about, all of television, radio, everything we'd ever built or destroyed was in the last second of the last day. That's how in a 14.3 billion year old universe, that everything that ever was regarding humans was in the last second of the last day. When you, again, condense all of universal time into the form of one calendar year. We are very small, but we are also all that we have. There is no series of other planets for us to go to. We have enough trouble getting off of this one. How many probes have we just seen in the last few months just trying to circle the moon that have failed? So we're not going anywhere anytime soon. We are not going to Mars. We're not terraforming Mars as a second place to live. Certainly not for humans in any great numbers. This is home. It's the only home we have. It is the only planet we have, and that's exactly why we have to take care of it. But the next thing I wanted to talk about was that our planet is alive. It is active. It is still changing and forming and destroying and building and tearing down. I experienced, and I would say, to be honest with you, I had the pleasure, and I only probably say pleasure because it wasn't that serious and there was essentially no damage. I got to experience what I believe is my third now earthquake in my lifetime. Third. What I originally heard was a 5.5 centered in Lebanon, New Jersey, north central New Jersey, on the I-78 corridor. Now, I believe since then that was revised down to a 4.8. But again, the Richter scale is 1 to 10. So you're talking 50% power. So be it 4.8 or 5.5, not a huge difference in between those two. But I felt it. Boy, we really felt it here. And it was neat. Now, why do I think it was neat? Like I said, because nothing got damaged. But you really felt it. I was working from home Friday. And everything that's in front of me right now from where I'm speaking to you from here in our second bedroom / studio / garbage dump has shook like you wouldn't believe. But at the end of the day, maybe it's very selfish of me, but I thought to myself, that was cool. Now, even closer to the epicenter, so far as I can, as I've been able to read so far, even at and near the epicenter in New Jersey, there's been no real proper damage. I believe the only thing that was damaged was a very old church. But even that, I think, is still habitable, and they're still using it for services, but it did show a bit of damage. That's the only thing that I'm aware of. If I'm missing anything, anybody can tell me. But for an area that is not generally known for earthquakes, that was proper. That was a big one. And I do think that we tend to forget, if you use DuckDuckGo or Google, and you just map of Earth's fault lines or tectonic plates, there is a fault line that runs under New York City. It just happens to be a very, very quiet one. really nothing major has come from it for probably hundreds of thousands of years, which would make you think that it's due, but nothing really of any real significance has happened. But there is a fault line that runs into New York City. Now, this branch in Lebanon, of course, was a branch off of that fault, but still, it reminds us that our Earth is alive. When we see the Kilauea volcano or the volcano in Iceland burst, when you see erupt is the word I was looking for. When you see video, and you can find it all over YouTube, of course, there's really nothing you can't find on YouTube, including this little program. A video of volcanic eruptions on the sea floor. Red hot molten rock coming up into the water at depths of thousands of feet. The planet is alive. It is constantly growing, changing. Islands are being born, others are falling into the sea. Coastlines are changing. Now, on a day-to-day basis, we never notice this. And some of the scientific things are, the sea level has risen an inch over the whatever hundreds of years. And you might think, well, that's nothing. In a climatary point of view, it means a lot. And let's not remember that by the end of this century, some of the predictions are that sea level will rise 10, 15 feet. A good portion of Florida will be underwater. The way Florida is going at the moment might not be a bad thing. Unless, of course, you live there. But our planet is alive. That earthquake just reminded about 40 million people that make up the greater New York metropolitan area, that this earth is alive. It is not stagnant. It has not stopped growing, changing, forming. This eclipse shows us that as well. It is the moon that steadied the earth on its axis that allowed life to begin in the first place. So I think these are really neat things to think about. I've always loved astronomy. I thought originally I would go to college to be an astronomer. Carl Sagan is a hero of mine, although I always disagreed about always disagreed with his particular view on alien life. But I couldn't get past a certain level of math. You need to be terribly, terribly good at math to be an astronomer, and I just am not. But you can still be involved in astronomy. You can still love it. You can still learn about it without knowing trigonometry and without knowing quantum mechanics. Just go outside and look up. Identify the stars, watch from night to night how they're moving. How Orion was here one night, 3 weeks later, it's a little bit further over here. A month later, it's over here. It's lowering itself on the horizon. Oh, there's the planet Venus. And tonight, one night, if you follow the Facebook group, you'll know I've talked about this before. You walk out one night, the moon and Jupiter are right next to each other. The next night, they're this far apart at the same time because everything is moving. Mercury, I believe Mercury is in retrograde right now, meaning it looks like it's moving backward. Moved to a certain point in the sky, and now it looks like it's moving backward. That's because it's moving relative to us moving. It's neat. It's interesting stuff. And I think that it really can provide a brain reset to you. Just to remember when your brain is so clouded with thoughts that you can go outside, look up into the sky, and realize that even when you see the moon, which of course is very large and seems very close, and it is the closest non-Earth celestial body. Even that is still 250,000 miles away. And that Mars is, I believe it's 7.5 million miles away. The sun is 40 million miles away. And on and on and on. And a quick little mental trick that I think I kind of stumbled upon. If you are somebody who suffers from a racing mind, or you are on your screens way too close to bedtime, working on emails, and generally speaking, probably working for free, and you just can't quiet your brain, try to think of this. It's just a trick. It might not work for you. It's worked for me in the past. It doesn't always, but it's worked for me in the past. Try to picture yourself as your own spacecraft. You leave Earth, you go past the moon, you go past Mars, you go past Jupiter, Saturn, and you go all the way to the end of the universe. All the way to the end. What's on the other side? What's on the other side? It's one of those kind of thoughts that does kind of become all-consuming, and it does clear everything else out. Are there even boundaries to our universe? The multiverse tells you that there is. The multiverse theory tells you that there is. That our universe is just a bubble that bounces up against others. I remember a story from years ago. I'm a very bad internet searcher. It would take me a good long while to find it. But I remember a story from years ago where scientists, astronomers had picked up a series of very odd vibrations and gravitational waves. And they traced it back to the source. And the only explanation that they could come up with is that our universe had butted up against another. And the force of that collision, where they bounced off like bubbles, like two bubbles, they bounced off against each other, caused these waves to ripple through time and space. It's a staggering thought if you think about it. It is to me. Maybe you think it, maybe I've bored the crap out of you for the first hour. I suppose that's possible. I do it a lot. But it's a staggering thought if you think of it. 7:05, entering our second hour. Remember now, the Villain's View comes up live after us on our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information, and on hot101.net. The Villain's View from 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. But for now, this is the Kennedy Effect live with you for the 7th of April, 2024. News about our program coming in mere weeks. Please, I dropped that little nugget out to you. Don't forget it. We will tell you more as we move through the month of April. Wherever you might be on the Facebook universe, in the Facebook universe, on it, in it, in it. Thank you, thank you, thank you for allowing us to share our program onto your corner of the Facebook universe, on groups both large and small, public and private, local, regional, statewide, national, global, in focus. The kindness of the administrators and members of groups from everywhere that have allowed us to be a part is immense, and we are immensely grateful in return. We could not do it without you, and we thank you and thank you and thank you and thank you again. If you would like to be part of the program right now, come to my Facebook, Jeff Kennedy. It's right there on my square, and it's in the lovely graphic in George's square. Come to my Facebook, and or we are live right now on our YouTube channel, which is called That other side of information. That other side of information. That also is the home group Facebook page for the program. In fact, I should check Facebook to see if I've missed any comments. I probably have. And if I have, I beg you to forgive me if I've missed any of your comments. Apparently, there has been some. Gentlemen, a couple folks have commented on the program from the New Deal Democrats group, which is awesome. Thank you. Fred says even a top priest said Trump's a false prophet. It's a topic we'll be talking about later in the program. Catherine in that group mentions that too many dissatisfied people, too lazy to alter their situations, prefer to engage in displacement behavior. It's a harsh way of putting it, but I understand the point she's trying to make. It's easier to blame others. I get all that, but we're, there's some comments from folks and taking us in other places. That's awesome. You can stay right there and do that. That's great. Stay there or come over to my Facebook, Jeff Kennedy, and you can be a live interactive part of the program. And we wish that you will do that. We invite you to do that as well. That other side of information on Facebook as well as YouTube is pretty much the home of the program. Great place to catch up on the program and the articles that we publish. Hot101.net, our name is our web address, hot101.net, and the apps for hot101.net, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn radio app. If you can connect to the internet, you can listen to hot101.net. It's that simple, and you should be doing so. I strongly encourage you to check out hot101.net 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, everywhere on, below, or above Earth. And of course, you can tell Alexa to play hot101.net. TCP Media Group from Lancaster, and our sponsor is the PayGive app, www.paygive.org. When you make these financial transactions, these apps make their money by charging you a fee. What's different about PayGive is that they will take a portion of that fee and dedicate it to a charity of your choice. There are health-related charities like the American Cancer Society, American Heart Association. There are children's charities like the Shriners Hospital, I believe, is one. St. Jude, I believe, is another. And there are animal charities like the ASPCA. They happen to be my particular charity of choice. It doesn't mean that you have to choose them, but I'm always partial to I think the World Wildlife Fund, I think, is part of that as well. They happen to be my charities of choice. Paygive.org, you have to buy things. When you do, you pay for them. Why not give while you do it? So let me now, the phone line is wide open. You want to jump in, talk about anything, go for it. This is a good time. 267-227-9189. And I haven't even gotten into the big topics that I was going to try to get into this week. Excuse me. It's allergy time, kids. Oh my goodness, it's allergy time. Can you hear it? It's coming. Nearly an hour straight of talking and barely taking a breath. No wonder. But it's coming. And excuse me for drinking watered down seltzer and soda on the air, but I needed something there. But yeah, allergy season has kicked in early. Anyway, yes, the phone line is open, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. It's a great time to join. Let me scan through and see if I'm watching. I said hello to Randall, Darlene, Nicole, welcome. Great to see some new names. My cousin Dawn is here. She's the best. She's always here. It's the best. It's awesome. Mr. Morley, I have not talked to in too long, is watching the program. Randall mentions, I think I was talking about when I was in my climate change discussion, that in Delaware County, I follow housing sales, and every house's location shows future climate change over the next 30 years, causing increased hotter temperatures, increased flooding, and increased wildfire potential. One of the realty apps I want to say it's Zillow. I'm pretty sure it's Zillow. Zillow has a series of maps that you can overlay over the property that you're looking at. Crime statistic maps, where the local schools are, where the local churches are. And I believe it's Zillow that has now included a climate change map where you can now track the effects of climate change on this particular property that you might be considering purchasing. That's an exceptionally forward-thinking thing to do. Because if you are looking to buy, as big of a fan as I am of it, and as much as I would probably still move there in the next 10 seconds, if you were buying a house that's literally right on the Jersey Shore, you might want to know what the potential effects of climate change are over the next few years. So what an effective tool. And by the way, for folks who like to argue that think, Jeff, put your words together, that capitalism will solve everything. Here's one place where capitalism has led to improvements. Zillow is not putting those maps there because of out of the kindness of their heart. It's because they think it'll draw more people to their app and they'll make more money. But it's a capitalistic solution. Sometimes capitalism and competition does provide solutions. It does drive innovation. When you have monopolies and when you have massive government subsidies of capitalism, then no. But at least in this occasion, it did. Randall mentions that the human race and our food livestock have totally overpopulated. He is correct. We are using about 2.5 Earths of resources per year to sustain ourselves, and that is unsustainable in and of itself. It's also exactly why we need to electrify the entire grid and everything that we do. Cars, cooking, as much manufacturing as humanly possible, transportation, all run on electricity, and that electricity provided us by solar and wind primarily. There is a giant fusion generator 70 million miles away from Earth that generates, that outputs an entire year's worth of electricity used on planet Earth every hour. It's called the sun, and we should be using it. And oh, by the way, if you're not a believer in solar, let me give you the simplest demonstration of the power of solar energy. On a brilliantly bright sunny day, as we had here in the Lehigh Valley, throw the curtains open, lift the shades, leave the windows completely uncovered, and see how hot it gets in the room. It's the simplest, easiest thing to solve. And it can be 20 degrees out, by the way. But brilliant sunshine. And just see how warm it gets in your room. Solar energy. Clifford McGoldrick was watching. I don't know Clifford, I don't think. Welcome, sir. New names. We love it. Dawn Eagle. I think that's how you say your last name. And if I butchered it, you yell at me and tell me that I'm wrong. Randall has a series of comments in here about, tomorrow's when we completely cross over the age of Aquarius. Well, you've stuck that song in my head now for the rest of the evening. Jerry Gonzalez is watching. Another new name. This is awesome. We hope you're all still there. George has posted a couple of links, including I think he actually found the article where scientists, astronomers believe that our universe bubbled, or the bubble that is our universe, if you believe the theory that our universe has boundaries to it, and that outer boundary, and that our universe is basically a large bubble where it bounced off of another universe. He actually posted that article. I believe that's the article. He also posted a link to Zillow, which I did have it right. It was Zillow. that is now including climate change maps in its home search and home purchasing, its home realty app, which is pretty cool. Let me try to get to a couple of the topics that I actually put on the show promotion. It would probably be nice if I did that. President Biden had what is described as a very tense, serious, yet somehow very productive conversation this week with Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel, where President Biden told Mr. Netanyahu that if Israel continues on its current course of military action in Gaza, that U.S. aid would have to now become conditional. Both military and financial aid would now become conditional. The president made it very clear that Israel has a responsibility, not just to international law, but to its own national identity, its own faith. After all, Israel is the Jewish state, even though there are Christians and Muslims that live there. Not as many as there used to be. It is the Jewish state, so it is a faith-based state. The president told Mr. Netanyahu that he had every responsibility to protect civilian lives in Gaza. If you have listened to this program at all, you know my position on this is actually kind of, I don't want to say it's in the middle, but I do think it's a bit more nuanced than most of the discussions that we have heard on the talking head programs, that you're either with Israel or you're not. These situations are entirely too damn complicated to simply say that you're either with us or you're against us. So much of human life and the human experience and politics and international relations and economics and all of these things, so much of this is lived in the gray areas. These things are not black or white, yes or no, up or down, left or right, liberal or conservative. They are in the gray areas. Israel has still, and had following October 7th, every right on earth to defend itself. It has every right to take its retribution. Yes, the word retribution. And have as a military goal to end the organization known as Hamas. It does not have it as a civilized, as a small d democratic, parliamentary democratic, first world, quote unquote, nation. It does not have the right to commit mass genocide. No nation has that right, but especially one that considers itself part of the first world, if you will, part of the Western industrialized social democratic parliamentary nations. We, as the United States being in most categories the last in that group of countries, we have an extra responsibility to protect such peoples. And I think President Biden made that clear From all reports, Mr. Netanyahu didn't take that very well. That's too bad, because the truth is the truth is the truth. Remember, I've told you on this program before that Mr. Netanyahu has every right, not every right, he wants this war to continue. He will be prime minister as long as this war continues. Once this military action ends, and Israel is not due for elections in 2 more years, but in a parliamentary system, elections can be called at any time. Remember, the Israelis went through, I believe it was 3 parliamentary elections in 18 months because they couldn't form a coalition government. The parties, all the different parties couldn't get together to form a majority, to build enough alliances to form a majority. And I want to say it was 3 parliamentary elections within about an 18-month period. Parliamentary systems can call elections. They do not always have to be regularly scheduled. Hundreds of thousands of people last weekend, and at least as far as I know, continuing, have been calling for early elections, a new round of parliamentary elections in Israel to get rid of Mr. Netanyahu. He knows as long as he delays that and keeps this war going, using the war as an excuse to not have elections, keeps him in power. And remember, he was going to go on trial for bribery, for massive fraud, for just literally taking envelopes and sacks full of cash to do whatever the business interests in Israel wanted him to do. That's why he tried to remake the courts. He tried to change the Israeli constitution to remake the court system, to keep his own self out of prison. Who does that sound like? Sounds like a guy who's running for president here in the United States. So he has every motivation to keep this war going. And you can argue, I think you can argue very, very fairly. President Biden should have taken this stance much earlier on. Bernie Sanders has been pushing the president for at least 2 months to say no more supporting Israel, period. No more money, no more military aid until they do XYZ, which is, in this case, would be to protect the Gazans. President Biden had Senator Sanders to the White House. They were talking primarily in public, of course, about healthcare and about how this administration, this Biden administration, with the help of Senator Sanders, capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. And now they're looking to do it to more prescription drugs, and how they continue to look to expand the ability for governmental agencies to negotiate drug prices. But if you think that those 2 men behind closed doors did not talk about Israel, and that Bernie did not push President Biden to say, you have to stop this now, it would be silly to think that they didn't talk about this behind closed doors. And I don't think it's by accident that after that happened, the president made, I don't want to say set the terms, or I don't think it's an ultimatum as such, but laid out to Prime Minister Netanyahu that, look, we're going to walk away here. We can't keep doing this. What you're doing is wrong. Defending yourself is one thing, slaughter is another. It's a very, very significant step. So now you've had Bernie Sanders, a practicing man of the Jewish faith himself, calling for the end of the Netanyahu government, an end to hostilities, a ceasefire, and massive, massive, massive aid into the Gazans, the Palestinian Gazans. And he's been doing that for months. You had the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, a practicing man of the Jewish faith himself, who has taken millions and millions of dollars in campaign cash from the Israeli lobby, go to the floor of the Senate and say that Israel needs a new government and that the people have to stand up and demand it. And they are. The second most powerful elected Democrat in the country. And now you have the president himself saying, we are not just going to hand over cash weapons to you like a blank check. It's the right thing to do. It is the moral thing to do. We think this is one of those areas where the very difficult, muddy, sticky, very sloppy, blurred line between religion and politics come in. Christ tells us to love thy neighbor, do unto others. As you do to the least among us, you do to me. But the Bible also says an eye for an eye. And I think that's exactly where and how Israel can do what it should be doing. Israel wants to destroy Hamas. Good. Go for it. I'm not sure that, there are very few countries on earth other than Iran and Syria. Even other Arab countries have said, yep, go get them. But you can't slaughter civilians. So yes, Israel, go destroy Hamas, eye for an eye. But you can't slaughter the innocents. Do unto others. Shelter the homeless, feed the hungry, clothe the naked. And that takes me into one of the other topics that I wanted to mention tonight, and that is the growing messianic rhetoric, verbiage, self-vision that Trump has been putting out there, that he is somehow akin to Christ himself. I was hesitant to bring up this topic because as many programs as I have spent with you on religion and politics, the politics of religion, the business that religion has become in a Reaganistic, fascist, growing fascist society. My own faith journey continues to deepen. I attended services today. I attended an educational class after. In fact, there's an outside chance that my pastor is listening right now, and I hope so. But faith does inform us, or should. It should inform our leadership. It should inform our elected leaders. Thou shalt not kill, do unto others. Clothe the naked, house the homeless, feed the hungry. A camel can pass through the eye of a needle easier than a rich man can get to heaven. Our faith should inform us in some of these political decisions, but our faith should not dictate the faith of others. I do not have the right to impose the Christian religion on Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Taoists, on and on and on. That's where the framers laid that dividing line. I've often shared with you the quote from the President Monroe's Treaty of Tripoli that in no way was the United States government founded on the Christian religion. True, and yet not all at the same time. Murder is illegal. Stealing is illegal. Certainly in the more faith-based colonies, adultery was illegal. We do take the lessons of faith and apply them to law. But the imposition of that faith on other faiths is where the framers built that separation of church and state, the establishment clause of the Constitution. The state shall not establish a religion. Christianity is not the official religion of the United States. The United States does not have an official religion. It is unconstitutional for the United States to have an official religion. But yet our faith does inform us that healthcare is a right, that education is important and is a right. Again, clothe the naked, feed the hungry. The rich trader that Jesus comes across on the road to the Sermon on the Mount. It's a very famous scene in Jesus of Nazareth. It's one of the scenes that really sticks with me. And this very, very rich merchant who has if I remember correctly, he has a trail of donkeys behind him holding all sorts of riches and monies and food and clothing, has several servants along with him, and says, "Rabbi, how can I get into heaven?" Jesus looks at him. He looks at his very fine, clean linen clothes, his trail of his entourage, if you will, to use a modern word, and says, "Give away all that you have to the poor and dedicate yourself to God and follow me." And the rich man says, "Give away everything that I have. I've worked so hard." And that's when Jesus tells him, you cannot serve two masters, money and God. Isn't it terribly convenient? He said sarcastically, that the folks who claim to be the keepers of the flame, if you will, of Christianity, the evangelicals, let me just say it. I'll just say it that way. Ones who claim to be way more Christian than you are, who claim to love God way more than you, these are the ones who have monetized the word for their own benefit, both for financial power and political power. They have used the word to scare, to frighten people. They've used it for their own enrichment, and they've used it for power. The ones who would claim to be marginalized, discriminated against for their faith, using that very same faith to marginalize and discriminate against others. and mostly for their own profit. And then here you have their leader, a man who's been married 3 times, had children, 5 children with 3 different women. And of course, we're not able to even calculate the number of abortions that have happened along the way. And there are women that have said publicly, he paid me to get rid of the baby. A man who's been found guilty of having a fake charity, has been declared by a judge to have committed rape, has 91 indictments against him, both federal and state. Who would dare take the stage and proclaim himself somehow akin to Christ himself, because I'm suffering and they're coming after me, and I'm suffering on your behalf. Mr. Trump has not and will never do anything on your behalf. He has not, and he never, ever will. I was living in Northeast New Jersey, working in New York, as he was rising when The Apprentice first hit the air. Hell, I used to watch The Apprentice when it first hit the air. I thought it was great television. But everyone, even then, in the New York area knew he was a fake. He wasn't constructing the buildings, he was putting his name on them. He's a brand. He's P.T. Barnum. He sells snake oil at the fair. The snake oil that will cure all your diseases, make your hair grow, make you a more potent man. The syrup and sugar water that these carnival barkers used to sell around the turn of the 20th century. In the horse-drawn carriage, it said, Trump's miracle cure. That's who he is. This increasing messianic language should be frightening to anyone who knows anything of the true faith. They should also know that it is completely antithetical to the faith and to the word. Again, at the risk of being very repetitive, tax cuts for the rich are not the word of Christ. Camel through the eye of the needle than a rich man into heaven. Being Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and Zuckerberg, and being 4 of the, well, 3 of them are the 3 richest people on the planet. There's nothing Christian about it. Nothing. Trump trying to stand in front of a crowd, and the crowds are embarrassingly large, still to this day, and saying, I'm just like Jesus. I'm being persecuted because I'm standing up for you. Mr. Trump would not know how to stand up for somebody else if he was held up. He has never stood for anything or anyone but himself. And the religious leaders, the faith leaders, quote unquote, I'm throwing a lot of air quotes this week, who stand beside him and say he is like, and then on the other hand, turn to you and say, now if you could just donate because I need a new private plane. This is the business of Christianity. It is the bastardization of Christianity. I even heard a faith leader this week who wrote an entire book on the subject on Morning Joe this week talk literally about blasphemy, which is a very biblical old religious word, and called Trump a blasphemer. And those that support him, especially the so-called religious leaders, accuse them all of blasphemy, of good old-timey biblical blasphemy. And I can't disagree. And I don't think you need to be a faith leader, a pastor, a reverend, a theologian, a professor to know it. I tend to use this joke a little too much because I find it shocking how many times it's relevant. When Larry Flynt brought a First Amendment case, if you don't remember who Larry Flynt was, he was the publisher of Hustler magazine. What a strange conversation to go from Christ to Hustler magazine within a couple of paragraphs. But he brought a First Amendment case and it made it all the way to the Supreme Court. And if I recall correctly, during the oral arguments, no less than Chief Justice Warren Burger addressed Mr. Flynt directly and said, this can be restricted. It's not appropriate for these certain segments of society, children included. The First Amendment only goes so far. And we know the old, adage that you can't scream fire in a crowded theater. But actually, it really isn't any more complicated than that. You cannot scream fire in a crowded theater just to be entertained watching people stomp all over themselves. You cannot threaten to kill someone. The First Amendment does have limits. And when Mr. Flynt and his lawyers were arguing, it's the First Amendment right to put this out without limitation. Chief Justice Burger said it's pornography. You can't just disseminate it to anyone. There has to be limits. And Flynt and his lawyers said, well, how do you define pornography? And Justice Burger's response was, I don't know that I can actually define it for you in words, other than to say, you know it when you see it. And folks, we're smarter than this. Even on the rare appeal that I make to the Trump followers, and I happen to think most of them are, they are the Israelites wandering in the desert with Moses for 40 years before passing into the promised land. A generation will have to die off. And it's a harsh analogy. It's not pleasant, and I've gotten a lot of stick for it. But a lot of this MAGA generation will have to die off before this cult goes away. But if any of you are out there listening to me, and I do know Republicans listen, by the way. I don't know that they're all MAGA Republicans, but I do know that Republicans listen. How does one define blasphemy? I think you know it when you see it. How does one define a fake Christian? I think you know it when you see it. A pastor of a megachurch who won't allow the homeless in, won't feed them, won't clothe them, but then asks you for $100 million for a new private jet. Not just a private jet, a new one, because the other one's old. I think you know the fake Christians when you see them. The sad part and the scary part of that is that they still don't see it. And here's where that one particular comment on Facebook really was spot on. And I need to find, it was Catherine who mentioned it. Too many dissatisfied people, too lazy to alter their situations, prefer to engage in displacement behavior. Trump is masterful at giving these people a target of, quote unquote, the other. The only place I would disagree with Catherine in that is that too lazy to alter their situations. Some are. Some are. Some are simply victims of 40 plus years of trickle-down economics and Reaganism. 55 plus trillion dollars in wealth extracted and transferred from the bottom 99% to the top 1%. And that's just income tax cuts. It's not corporate tax cuts, offshoring of monies and accounts, capital gains tax cuts. $55 plus trillion. It also, by the way, doesn't count the trillions of dollars that were wasted in Iraq and Afghanistan after September 11th, which were never paid for by taxes. It was simply borrowed money, borrowed printed money, actually. Wow, I'm getting parched. So this is one of the things I wanted to talk about this week, this increasing messianic visions that Trump is putting on top of himself. What it does to his followers is it does in many ways make them more loyal, because he convinces them that he is doing this on their behalf, that this was somehow his destiny to take on these burdens, if you will. It also gives him the right, gives him an ability to claim persecution where there is none. And it makes the loyalty of these folks a bit more, it makes it more pliable, more usable. That once Trump has convinced them that he is this messianic figure, that he is being persecuted on their behalf, that when he throws the switch, like he did on January 6th, 2021, and he will throw that switch again. He's already promised violence if he doesn't win the election. But when he then goes back to these folks and says, I need you to defend me, you need to stand up, they'll do it. And they'll think they're doing it for righteous reasons. They'll think they're doing it for the right reasons. Trump is 78 years old. He's almost 300 pounds. I don't know how he hasn't. I actually say this with seriousness. I don't know how he hasn't suffered some type of disease, poisoning from just the sheer amount of fake tan that's been sprayed on him. I mean that sincerely. I mean, these are chemicals being sprayed on the skin. I don't know how he's not gotten sick from it. He may not even be around to see the civil war he is fomenting. All the more reason that I will continue to pray and work through this program and to try to keep some semblance of hope together that these folks can still be reached. Because I do think that there's a good number of them that on some level know better. They know better, but they're without hope. And part of the reason I think they're without hope is because the Democratic Party hasn't done enough to give them hope. It's why after the State of the Union, I was so excited. And I spent so much time on this program following the State of the Union to talk about the monstrous importance, the deep, deep, deep importance of Joe Biden in that State of the Union saying it's time to end the institution of trickle-down economics and austerity. By default, although not saying the words, by default saying it's time to return to the New Deal. And it's these very people who are, oddly enough, white, working, poor. They make up a tremendous amount of Trump's base, the white working poor. It's this group, from the old Confederacy too, by the way, the white working poor from the South, that make up a large proportion of his base. And it's this particular group that is benefiting most from the Biden administration's economic policies. They've been convinced that their situation's getting worse, when in fact, and all the data reflects it, it's actually getting better. But as someone who continues my faith journey and continues to I continue to study and look at my faith through, I think, a scholarly, if you will, eye, a political eye. I find it deeply, deeply disturbing. And I think blasphemy is probably not an overstatement. It's a dramatic word. It is, as I said, it's an old biblical, timey-wimey word. Let's see if George caught that reference. But it's also true. To compare yourself to Christ is blasphemous. To somehow think that a billionaire is taking one on the chin for you, just like Christ, is laughable. It's disturbing. It's blasphemous. And it is antithetical to everything that Christ was. It's antithetical to everything that we believe he is and everything that he wishes us to be. And we're better than this. We are better than being led by a self-anointed prophet. Because essentially that's what Trump is putting himself in the position of, a prophet. The problem is he's Jim Jones. He's David Koresh. He's the Reverend Moon. He is not the second coming. He's not chosen by God to run for president. He's not chosen by God to lead this country. He has never led anything. He is running for president to keep himself out of prison. And because he can make money doing it. All the rest of us are cannon fodder. We are logs to be thrown in the wood chipper to make mulch. Two things matter to Trump in no particular order. Trump and his money. And that's it. That's it. And remember, before he ever ran for president, when he did an interview and was asked if he would run as a Democrat or a Republican, he said, I'd have to run as a Republican because I can't fool the Democrats. Folks, he's not Christ. None of us are. So that doesn't make him particularly different. But to claim it in front of the groups of people who consider themselves to be more faithful and closer to God than any of the rest of us, should disturb you deeply. And quite frankly, I hope it does. 8 p.m., we're entering the final hour of the Kennedy Effect live with you for April 7, 2024. Only 2 more shows live before the Pennsylvania Democratic primary. And even though the presidential primaries, correct himself quickly, presidential primaries are well sorted. There are important primaries here in the Commonwealth, including row offices for Attorney General, Auditor General, and Treasurer. There are congressional primaries throughout the state. Several Republicans running for Democratic-held seats, several Democrats running for Republican-held seats. There are legislative primaries. It's an important election year. So far, I have not had any primary candidates on this program. I have not even invited many because I've tried to stay out of the primary. As a progressive host, as a state committee member, I am trying to stay out of the primary. Once the primaries are settled, I hope all of the candidates running for anything nationwide come and see us. State legislators, state Senate, U.S. House, U.S. Senate, hell. I hope Uncle Joe himself comes by the program. Wouldn't that be something special? I'm not holding my breath, but wouldn't that be quite the dream? Then they're all welcome. I have had some primary candidates approach about coming on the program. I certainly will not deny them. If they are kind enough to share their time, if they have as nice an opinion about our program that it's worthy to come visit here, that it will further their campaigns, then I consider that to be a compliment. Then I will have them. We just haven't had any so far. After the primary, I hope to have Democratic candidates for every level of government, state or higher. Again, state legislators, state senators, row offices, governors, they're all welcome here. You know, we do reach well over 500,000 people every week, every time that we're live. It's not a small thing. So I hope that they will come. 802. If you missed any of the program up until now, we don't know that you've missed a hell of a lot. Maybe you have a different opinion. I hope that you do. I happen to think I've been very scholarly so far this program. Hope you feel the same way. Very much hope Franz feels the same way. Been very, very careful with my vocabulary tonight, my enunciation and my diction. Something that Franz is always very good at, and keeps me quite on my toes about. I think we've been quite scholarly and effective tonight, and I hope you feel the same way. I hope you're enjoying the program. We're entering our final hour. Please remember, coming up immediately, well, coming up after us, that's assuming I can make it to 9 o'clock, because my throat is starting to hurt quite a lot. My back is absolutely killing me. This is why you see me moving around in the chair so much. I'm trying to find some comfortable something to do with this back. 9 p.m. Eastern, the Villain's View comes your way live. Our home group Facebook page, that other side of information, and on hot101.net. And the Facebook pages, by the way, for hot101.net. You can do it there too. And of course, Ghost Claw Entertainment. I don't know why. It is a word I cannot say quickly. Ghost Claw Entertainment on Facebook as well. Our friend Sergeant Mac, Thomas McCormick. The Villain's View comes up at 9 p.m. I'm running out of air. Have you noticed? I wonder if anybody's ever taken their inhaler live on the air, because I just might have to. Suddenly I'm running out of air. My asthma has been really, really terrible since COVID. Really bad. I've struggled sometimes for air and to get the weight off my chest. Wherever you are across Facebook, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. In fact, I will do this now because I forgot that I can do this. I should be getting the show out to some groups that I forgot. And I will try to do that right now because I was stopped earlier in the program from sharing to certain groups because I ran out of shares. It might not be as many as I thought. The problem is that it recycles itself and it doesn't tell you where you already shared to. So there's probably groups that I've forgotten, but we did get out to another few. We're 105 shares this week. I continue to ask you to please, please, please share the program. We depend on it. We could not be here if you were not there. I ask you to continue to please share the program. I have a group list that's got about 130 something groups on it. Not all of them are appropriate to have the group shared to. There's sports related ones and things. You know, we do politics here, we don't do sports, but so I don't share it to them. But when I did the sharing of the show announcement itself, that one went to almost 125 places. I'm at 105, so I'm skipping groups because I'm forgetting from 6 o'clock which ones I could do and which ones I got blocked from because the list recycled itself. So now I don't know which ones I did and I didn't do. But I ask you, you have a group list. You have a list of groups that you are a part of. If they are appropriate to have this program be part of it, then I ask you to please share that as well. Not just your own personal Facebook, but also please, if you have groups or pages that you're a part of where you believe that this program would find a home and be appropriate, then I ask you to please do that. It helps grow the program, and we appreciate anybody who's willing to help us grow the program. If you missed any of the program, we are currently live on YouTube. And when we sign off, this program will be there, right there, ready for you to watch from the beginning. That other side of information on YouTube. That other side of information on YouTube. Also, the name of our Facebook group, the home for the Kennedy Effect. The group runs all the time. There's always new stuff there. News articles, science articles, environmental articles, animal advocacy articles, and sometimes just funny pictures. Check out our home group Facebook page, that other side of information. If you want to comment, question, be a part of the program live in real time right now for the final hour, come to my own Facebook. My name's right on the screen. Jeff Kennedy, we're easy to find. I'll take your questions, your comments. You can drive this conversation. You can be part of it. Don't just listen to me lecture you. I'm not that smart. I promise. I'm not. George will tell you I'm not. Kristen will tell you I'm not. The cat would probably tell you I'm not. You don't have to just listen to me speak at you. You can be part of the program, and we hope that you will. Hot101.net, our name is our web address, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn Radio app, TCP Media Group, and the PayGive app, www.paygive.org. When you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? Randall, welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm doing okay, Jeff. COPD's been acting up, but other than that, other health problems I'm doing okay.
Well, I'm glad that you're hanging in there, my friend.
I'm just glad we're getting to it. I think we're finally going to get towards spring. Although even down here and outside Philly, Southwest Delco, it's going to be down like 37 tonight. And
yeah, it's supposed to be an odd week, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just quickly.
Yeah, there's one day we're going up to 70, I think Tuesday, and then boom, we're in the 60s again.
Yep.
And then I think next Sunday we're going back up in the 70s again. But yeah, another blast of cold air is going to come, I guess, Tuesday night.
3 more
anyway.
days. 3 more days. I'm looking at the Weather Channel app. That's my go-to app for weather, is the Weather Channel. And I figure that's the whole channel is built around weather. I should be able to trust them with a forecast, right? So tomorrow in Bethlehem, anyway, Randall's a little bit, about an hour plus south of us. So I wouldn't expect that there'd be a huge change, but just for the sake of geography, for those of you who aren't familiar with where I am and where Randall is. Monday, I got partly sunny, 64. Tuesday, I think, is the day you were talking about, Randall, 76, partly sunny. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, rain again.
Yep.
3 straight days of rain. And then back to Saturday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we're partly cloudy from 58 up to 70. So it's enough to make everybody sick. That's for sure. It should be enough to drive everybody's allergies as well, because At this point, you're talking about not just the pollen, but with all that rain, you're talking about mold.
Yep. My wife's highly allergic to mold.
It
So,
also affects
you
those
know,
of us with COPD or asthma, or mold it makes it difficult to breathe.
Yep. We, over the years, as we've, moved from home to home, and looked at homes, there were so many homes my wife's going like, no, I smell mold. And I can't smell nothing, but it's like, yeah, okay, but look, we keep looking. Anyway,
Randall,
yeah.
I'm sorry, really
Excuse me,
quickly,
go ahead.
really quickly before you get into your point, and I will let you, I will let you get into your point.
I
don't
know.
don't want to ignore a really nice comment in it. Well, nice that he took the time to listen and make the comment. Lewis Shoup, who's a friend from Allentown, who does run some groups, community groups on Facebook for Allentown, is also very much into local community-based radio as well. Good man. That he put a comment on the program that I don't want to forget about, that Trump will be in Schnecksville, which is a village outside of Lehigh, southwest of the main part of the Lehigh Valley. I think Schnecksville is still in Lehigh County, but it's closer to the Berks County line. That Trump will be in Schnecksville next Saturday. That is correct. He will be here next Saturday. And here's the kind of funny part. He's coming for a rally, quote unquote, more air quotes, using lots of air quotes this week, folks. Now, it had been reported that he had a rather large rally planned for Phoenix, Arizona, that he had to cancel because his campaign could not afford to pay to reserve the venue.
And after he didn't pay all the venues in 2016 and 2020, nobody wants him. Nobody wants him municipality wide.
So he's having a rally in the greater Lehigh Valley. Now, notice, by the way, when he has these rallies, he rarely goes to the central location that you would think of in a particular place. He doesn't go to Philadelphia. He goes to Schnecksville. He doesn't go to Allentown. He goes to Schnecksville. He doesn't go to Charlotte, North Carolina. He goes to Greensboro. He doesn't go to Cincinnati or Cleveland, Ohio. He goes to Columbus. It's always the place kind of off from the center, so to speak. But that said, the rally that he's having in Schnecksville next week is at a VFW hall. Now, do I think that's wrong or bad? Is it wrong to hang out with distinguished, heroic American veterans? Of course not. Of course not. But I'm kind of thinking that might be the only place they could afford. But that also doesn't mean that for our side of the aisle, that we have to take it all for granted that he's out of money. He can't afford this. We're going to win this election because we have so much more money. He brought $50 million in just last night at a fundraiser where the tickets started at $250,000.
Because he promised the billionaire class that was there, and I was like, there's 150. Most of them billionaires. He promised that one of the tax breaks that him and the Republican-controlled Congress and the Republican-controlled Senate in 2017 gave the billionaire class is going to expire when all the middle class, all the working class, all the working poor class classes tax breaks in 2025. He didn't talk about he's going to extend that for the middle class, lower middle class, working poor. No. We're just going to extend that specific tax break to you, billionaires.
Well, part of that tax cut from 2017 is that not only Randall's 100% right. Not only does Trump want to extend those tax cuts for the top 1% and the largest of corporations, he wants to go further than that with yet another round of tax cuts. At a minimum, he'd like to extend them. He really wants to give larger cuts. But the hidden part of that 2017 tax bill, the 83% of the benefits of that went to the 1% and the largest corporations in the country. The remaining 17% were not technically tax cuts. They were I don't want to say reorganization. It's not the withholding tables were changed.
Yeah, postponed.
So that you
and
could,
then at the end of the year, you had to pay.
and you owed it. You owed the
still
money.
had to pay that.
You just owed the money back anyway. Now, here's the other part. And Randall's right about this. In 2025, not only do those withholding rates go back to the original formulas, taxes will actually increase. The actual tax percentage will increase on the bottom 99%, and it will go up every single year for 10 years into 2035. And this is one of the great failures of the Biden administration, that this was not reversed or wiped off the books. Hopefully it's the first thing they'll do if Democrats take complete control of Congress beginning on January 2nd, 2025, that they will fix this. But part of that plan, part of that legislation, the one that Paul Ryan got $1 million check from the Koch brothers for when he retired from Congress, just got a paper check for $1 million. Thanks for everything, Paul. Or tax increases every single year over the next 10 years on the bottom 99%. And oh, by the way, those tax increases are upside down. The poorer you are, the higher the increase on you. So you're right. You're not making that up. That's the truth.
Yep. God's truth.
Yep. What do you think of the well, let me ask you a different question rather than continue down the religious path. I'm sure that you encounter folks every day who will tell you that economically they are worse off now than they were under Trump, when all the data and science tells them that they're lying. Why do you think that? Why do you think that is? The nation's at full employment.
It's because
wages are up.
That's an easy question to answer, Jeff. It's because the two big fluctuations in home budget are, number one, fuel to get you to and from work, and number two, food. And you talked earlier in the program, the deliberate, and it's absolutely deliberate, folks out there, the deliberate cutting of oil production by Russia, Saudi Arabia, and Iran to make sure that the price of gasoline goes up, because it's not just we are the biggest producers now on this planet of oil and natural gas. We are the biggest exporters now on this planet. You know, we surpassed Saudi Arabia on that score, but it has nothing to do except greed from the American oil and gas companies. Well, it's nothing to do with what should be charged here in this country. It has to do with the world market, and oil, for example, is almost, it's going to go up to $100 a barrel, 55-gallon barrel. That's going to affect us because all the oil companies in this country are going to increase their price along with Saudi Arabia, Russia, et cetera, because there's less supply per barrel of oil. Now, natural gas, it's the same thing. I mean, here we are in Pennsylvania. We're the biggest fracking state. We've surpassed Texas. We surpassed Oklahoma for fracking natural gas. And if you want to export it, like, for example, to Europe, you've got to build these terminals. And there's a big fight down here in Philadelphia County and Delaware County. There's a big fight down here. We don't want this going through. We don't want these distribution on the Delaware River refineries. Why? Because of the leakage of methane, i.e. natural gas, and the detrimental points it causes to the health of the people along the Delaware River. And those people, by majority, are people of color. And I can go on and on, about this, but thank God our governor, Shapiro, is at least on that point trying to slow the development. And the same thing with President Biden. Now, he's not going to give any more permits as long as he's president, as long as his administration is EPA and Department of Energy. Don't allow more and more and more of these distribution facilities in this country. Yeah, there's a reason for doing it. And that reason is Europe, our NATO partners, they've been cut off from natural gas from Russia. Yes, they need natural gas. But to put it in the communities of poor people of color, which there are along the Delaware River here in Pennsylvania, is just atrocious for the health of children and the health of adults. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I can't. I hear you. I hear you.
It's a catch-22.
I hear you. I agree with that. And that I've said here too many times that the simply being told that the economy is better doesn't always make you feel it. And that while an economy as large as the United States, it is the largest economy on earth, has an unemployment rate at 3.8%, that is, for all intent and purpose, zero. We are at full employment, essentially. I still understand and still believe and still sympathize with that full employment includes people who simply aren't earning enough. They have jobs, they might have 3 or 4 or 5 of them. And that the basic underpinnings, and again, President Biden said this in his State of the Union, that the basic underpinnings of Reaganism and trickle-down economics have not been broken down. So if you're making $15 an hour, if you're even lucky enough to make $15 an hour,
which Pennsylvania is the federal, which is $7.25. Yep. And you saw I posted on that other side. I mean, excuse me. On your Facebook page this week, that here we are surrounded by even West Virginia.
Yes.
Poor West Virginia. has a higher minimum wage than Pennsylvania does. And the Republicans go, they're here in PA. Oh my God, you're going to destroy small business, blah, 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 blah. Like, man, it's crazy.
So even though all of the economic data, the science of it, the facts of it, is that wages were up 4% last year over the year before, and they were up. Wages have risen every year that Biden has been in office. When you're only making $15 an hour, 4% is not a huge increase. It's better than nothing, but it's not a huge increase. 4% of a dollar is 4 cents, right? It's not. So at 15 times 4, am I ever going to be able to do that in my head? Crikey, 60 cents. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. I think that's part of why people are not they don't seem to feel the general strength of this economy. But that doesn't change the facts. The facts are that we're at full employment. 3.8 in an economy this size is essentially full. The labor participation rate continues to climb, meaning the percentage of the population who is actually working is growing, not shrinking. Some of that, even, I will say, is part of the fact that seniors, unfortunately, need to continue to work. We have children back into the workforce in these red states. And I do mean children, 14 years old and up. And we have seniors and dying doing it, by the way.
The labor laws in this country state that under 16 cannot operate any type of machinery.
You have these states are changing that.
I'm going to throw this out real quick. My 3 daughters all started working before they were 16 at Acme Markets here. Okay? And they were actually doing, in my opinion, more hazardous work than running a register. But they could not work a register because it's a machine. Now, what were they doing at age 14 and 15? They were cleaning the bathrooms with, toxic chemicals at stores. Like, it's crazy. You know what I mean?
I agree, but you have these red states that are changing labor laws within their borders, so you can now.
But and what they're changing it for is
cheap labor.
To put children in meatpacking industries, cleaning start machines at night, not getting any sleep, not being able to go to school or fall asleep in school because they're up all night working because they come from poor families.
It's cheap labor and it's union busting labor.
Oh, well, that's why you have, right to work laws are
right to work
all red states.
And you have, and I think part of the labor participation rate is that you have seniors working later and later into what should be the retirement years because healthcare is so expensive and because Medicare is now 50% privatized and Social Security has not kept up. It is long past time to eliminate the cap for the Social Security tax. If you make right now, I think it's 142,000.
If we eliminate the cap, we can fund Social Security and Medicare. If you remove those 2 caps,
for about 70 years, it'll be completely solved.
Extend it for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
Versus the projections coming up, this one's going to run out in like 10 years. This is going to run out in 7 years.
But I do think that the president has to talk more about the economy because truth is truth. That's just it. And to be honest with you, as much as some folks I think would probably accuse him of, because again, Republicans are really, really good at accusing others of doing exactly what they're doing to try to deflect what they're doing. This president, as much as he might be accused of, economic conspiracy theory, has to stand up and tell people, look, I know there was some genuine inflation in this economy coming out of the pandemic. But you cannot have these corporations, fossil fuel industry, the giant processed food companies, retailers like Walmart and Amazon and so on, the automotive sector, making, not to mention the fact that, not long ago in this program, I told you how Apple became the first trillion-dollar company. There's a whole handful of them now. It's not even news. It's not even a news event when the valuation of a company now surpasses $1 trillion. This president has to stand in front of people and say, look, there was some genuine inflation. There really was. I get it. There was. And we worked to stop it. But when these companies are making globally historic high profits, that's not inflation, folks. And to be fair, I'll look you straight in the face and say, if you don't believe me, I don't care, because you're wrong. That's not inflation. Sometimes I do think politicians have to have the jewels to look people in the face and say, no, I'm sorry, you're wrong. You're wrong. To blame all of this on inflation is factually incorrect. It's wrong. The data doesn't support it. There was some genuine inflation coming out of the pandemic. Absolutely. But the greedflation, which I think is just a stupid sort of word, it's quirky. It's like, everything's a gate after Watergate. Every scandal has gate on the end of it. This wealth extraction that we've cornily called greedflation, but this fake inflation, which is actually wealth extraction, that's not inflation. When the biggest corporations and the richest people on the planet think that your money is their money, that they deserve your money, you're making more money, so they're just going to raise the prices of everything and take it back because they think that's yours or that's theirs. What's yours is theirs. What's theirs is theirs, and what's yours is theirs. That's wealth extraction. And the surrogates for this administration, the campaign staff for this administration, the governors and the secretaries of departments inside this administration need to stare people in the face and say you're being lied to. Not just put an arm around them, but yeah, you do have to put an arm around them when it's appropriate, but sometimes you need to look people back in the face and say you're getting lied to. That's not inflation. When ExxonMobil makes $58 billion in a year, that's not inflation. That's greed. And that's wealth extraction. Period.
No,
Teresa mentions in the comments that all inflation is actually controlled by Congress. Absolutely not. I am loath to disagree with you, Teresa. We love you, and I deeply, deeply appreciate that you listen to the program. That is factually just simply incorrect. It's incorrect, and I just stated why. When Exxon records globally historically high net profits, $58 billion in a year, that's not controlled by Congress. That's capitalism. That's capitalism run amok. That's completely unregulated capitalism. If you would like to blame Congress for removing the guardrails on capitalism, we can blame Congress for that. This is the Reagan era. This is we're removing those stifling regulations. Do you know what regulations really are? They're protections. The regulations that make sure the food doesn't kill you is a protection. It's the same in the financial sector, that your banker can't rob you. Those are protections. If you want to blame Congress for removing those guardrails, I'm with you. And she mentions in the comments that she just learned it in her political class. Then I don't know what your professor's teaching you. And I'm not a professor, and I don't play one here. My point simply is, if you want to blame Congress in this equation, it's because in the Reagan era, they have deregulated everything. Franklin Roosevelt himself repeatedly declared himself a capitalist. He believed in capitalism, but he also believed that it needed to be regulated. Because at the end of the day, just like water will always find its lowest point, the rich will always find a way to scam you. They will always find a way to steal from you. People will always cut corners. They will always cheat to make more money. The New Deal was a regulatory. Success doesn't even cover it. In addition to the work programs that the New Deal put in place, it was the regulatory side of the New Deal that kept the economy stable up until Reagan. The only recessions that happened in this country post full implementation of the New Deal were the oil embargoes by OPEC in the 70s. Now we seem to see a recession every 3 to 7 years since Reagan cut taxes. High taxes stabilize an economy. The New Deal wasn't just a success because it put people to work and because it put money in their pockets, money that they then spent on other things that made other people make money that they could then spend on other things, and so on and so on and so on. An economy runs on the constant circulation and turnover of money. The regulatory side of the New Deal was, it's almost impossible to put into words how well that worked. And what has happened since the onset of the Reagan era was to break all of that down. And that's why now we only have 6 major banks. We only have 3 major wireless providers in the country, when France has over 100, and they pay about $35 a month for their phone, cable, and internet. And I pay $200 just for the freaking internet.
And we have only 5 major meat producing companies in this country.
Correct. Yes. And I didn't even know it was 5, to be honest. I thought it was 3.
Major companies in this country controlling canned goods, controlling, it's endless. But getting back to what you were saying earlier, Jeff, it's the greed of the billionaire class and the corporations, especially the corporations, and what I'm going to talk about. Increase prices, make bigger profits. And what do? Well, we're going to buy back stock. Wow, we're going to give our shareholders bigger dividends. But we're not going to pay our workers more. We're not going to give them a better benefits. No. And we're going to stick it to you, the 99%. And, the economy runs on consumerism. Well, the rich are not the consumers. We people are. And if we don't have money, then the economy will go into a recession, because and you can see that what's going on right now. People have cut back because the 2 major things in a home budget, other than rent or the price of housing, which are astronomically have increased since the pandemic. Other than that, the biggest things in a home budget are healthcare, number 1. Number 2, gasoline prices or fuel prices to heat your home or to cool your home. And number 3, food prices. Go ahead.
I can't disagree with any of it. You're right. But I would the only thing I would say is that it doesn't change the facts of it. I understand that folks may not feel it. They may not feel it as much as they should. They may not be benefiting as much as they should. But Fox lying to them about how we're in the middle of some desperate depression is a lie as well. It just is. The economy is not bad because Sean Hannity tells you it is. Is it great? If you're poor, no, it's not great. But then again, that's been that way since the beginning of time. No economy is great if you're poor. Remember, Roosevelt said when he was trying to push his second Bill of Rights, the Economic Bill of Rights, that when you are economically insecure, you are not truly free. And guess what, kids? That's part of the point. That's part of the point. You know, I've seen a lot of friends on Facebook. I don't know if they've all been hacked. I don't know if the Russians really put the election interference into high gear this week. But I've seen friends on Facebook posting different memes, photos with quotes on them and all this, that have, some of them have been more full of shite than I could have imagined that these people would ever, and some of it has been flat out of character for some of these folks. One of which that really got me angry this week, and I don't normally respond to them because they're so ignorant. They're so inane. Randall, you're heavy breathing. It's getting me way too excited. One of the memes was, this very 50s looking Ward Cleaver kind of guy saying that if the economy is so great, why do you have to keep telling me about it? I have to keep telling you for the folks of you out there who are getting lied to. That's getting lied to. What's the old saying? George will find it for me. That a lie circles the earth, what is it, X number of times before the truth ever has a chance to get on its way, or something along that line. What are you dialing? I'm hearing all kinds of fun stuff. You were dialing. Those lies get out there. They convince you that you're worse off. I'm not here to tell you that you're great. Right? We have not created, the 99% did not become rich in the last 4 years. And by the way, I happen to think President Biden knows that. And I don't think he would have mentioned ending Reaganism in the State of the Union if it was that much better. But the truth is the truth. Unemployment is low. The markets are at record high. And I don't happen to think that the markets are great indicators of the overall economy. The investor class is doing brilliantly. Billionaires are doing brilliantly. We're creating more billionaires. There are, Tom Hartman mentioned this week, I wish I could remember, I think it's 6. And that doesn't sound like a lot. There are 6 men who are billionaires because they ran healthcare companies. That's perverse. It's sick. It's sick. And I don't mean to use the word sick. It's not a pun. It's sick. So believe me, our economy is not fair. Still, President Biden is correct. God bless him. Somebody finally stood up and said, Reaganism is a lie and it needs to end. But now we have to do that. But there are signs in this economy that are good and that are strong. 700,000 jobs just in chip manufacturing since the CHIP Act. even more manufacturing that's been brought back, including auto manufacturing, solar panels. The infrastructure bill is making a real difference. It's putting people to work in good paying jobs. The economy is not cured. We are not back where we were under Roosevelt. We do not have the almost flawless economy that we saw in the 50s and 60s. But at least there's a president talking about trying to take us back there again. Reaganism is a lie. You cannot cut taxes on the richest and think that they're just going to throw the money out the window and share it with you. During the Republican presidential primary in 1980, before Reagan was the nominee, he was in a debate with George H.W. Bush, who then who then became his vice president. When Bush looked at him and said, "You can't cut taxes and increase revenue. It's math. It doesn't work. It's a lie."
Economic.
But George Bush wanted to be vice president, became rich doing it.
Yep.
So they bought him off.
Well, that's like Trump in 2016 picked as his vice president a quote evangelistic Christian unquote to gain the support of the evangelistic white Christians in this country, predominantly in the South, that you know, a guy that never goes to church, a guy that holds a Bible upside down after he sends Goon Squad federal people out to strip around the church that have been burned in Washington, D.C., and he holds the Bible upside down.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and then tries to sell one, which by its own definition is blasphemous as well. But hey, we got 10 minutes left. I got to say goodbye. We got to wrap up.
I know. And we don't forget what I just posted, you know.
I know. I can read a clock. I can read a clock. I'm pretty smart sometimes. Sometimes.
Listen, I couldn't talk earlier. Daughter, son-in-laws, and grandchildren were all here.
Well, good. They should be. That's way more important.
And well, the Sunday dinner is like the big family dinner.
It's way more important, man. That's way more important.
Anyway, I couldn't talk because I was listening and playing with the kids. You know. Anyway, Jeff, thank you for everything you do, brother.
The Villain's View has not started the pre-show yet. Maybe
you're on this week.
I thought he was though, but I'm not going.
I thought he was too. But
don't worry, I'm not going. I ain't going past 9 anyway because I'm getting tired and I got to work tomorrow.
I know you.
Whatever.
I know you.
All right. Thank you.
I wish I could have called in earlier because there were so many things you went over that I really had comments on.
Well,
but
we're here every week.
And I'm usually here every week.
Yeah, I mean, mostly. We're usually here every week. You know what I mean? All right, I'll talk to you next week, sir.
Hey, give love to Kristen.
I will.
And love you, bro.
You stay healthy. I'll talk to you soon.
You too.
All right, bye now.
Bye.
We got just 9 minutes left in the program. It is interesting. I went to where the Villain's View airs, and I don't see it. So it's possible that they're not live this week, but I'm not going to go past 9 anyway because I'm tired and my throat is starting to go. But I just wanted to bring up one last thing that I did not have on the show sheet, but that I think is kind of interesting. When I lived in Jersey, in Northeast New Jersey, especially in the Morristown area. George will know, he and I lived close to each other. It's how we became friends. Sadly for him, but very lucky for me, but sadly for him. I would work, especially when my marriage broke up. I got very, very boring and I got very routine. And I would go to, after I'd leave work, I'd go right to the gym, sometimes for 2-3 hours a night. And then I would leave the gym, and literally right next door to the gym was this small privately owned convenience store, and I would get my lottery tickets. And I only played certain lottery things. I'm not one of those, like, I didn't have a notebook full of numbers, and I didn't play every lottery game. It just I played Powerball, Mega, and Cash for Life. I think were the only three that I ever played. But I did play them routinely. I think I spent a whopping $5 a week on them or something like that. Because usually I would win a little bit, like $1 here, $2 there, and it would almost cover it. I'm sure over the totality that I lost money. But on a week-to-week basis, I was not laying out a ton of money for it. I wasn't a budget breaker. When I moved to PA, I stopped playing as much because I stopped going past that store. And I never really found a nice store here, where I could go and actually talk to a human being and buy tickets and things like that. Now they just have these big kiosk machines there. I'm not a fan. That said, I have been playing lately because the Mega Millions went over $1 billion, and then someone won it, and one person won it. And the Powerball last night was $1.3 billion. And to be honest with you, I still have no idea if anyone won it. But I played. And I'm actually taking a quick peek. I don't know if anybody won it. So it might be even higher. I honestly don't know. Somebody won it because the next drawing is Monday and it's only 20 million. So someone won it. I have no idea. I tend to think it probably wasn't me. But it made me think that there's something different about the lottery. When you go into a casino, I don't think you expect to win a huge jackpot. You want to have fun. It's entertaining. You visit a restaurant. You have good. Phyllis is telling me someone in Oregon. I'm not in Oregon, Phyllis. That doesn't help. It doesn't make me happy. I still need to check the numbers, though. Maybe I won 10 grand. Maybe I won $1. I don't know. Maybe I won enough to buy more tickets. Who knows? And by the way, I'm not stupid, right? Some people would say that, but I'm not stupid. It was $1 billion, 1.3 billion. If you just took the flat cash value, it was over 600 million. I am not stupid. I'd love to have it. But even 10,000 would be like a big change for us. It would be a huge help. 500,000 would completely change our lives. So winning 600 million, I can't even fathom. But I'm wondering what it's different. It made me wonder what's different about the lottery. When you go into a casino, you have fun, you go to the restaurants, you play, there's lights and sound and music, and it's a whole entertainment experience. If you hit some huge jackpot, God bless you, but I think most people don't enter one thinking, I'm walking in here for the express purpose of winning $1 million. When you bet on a sporting event, you might do it for fun. There are professional gamblers. You might do it it makes you somehow more interested in the sporting event. I don't know, but I don't think most people, in the way you would buy a square in a Super Bowl pool or something like that, I don't think most people do such things thinking they're going to become massively wealthy. When there's a 50-50 at your church or the raffle at the county fair or something, I don't think people think they're going to get massively wealthy off it. But there's something different about the lottery, that when you buy that ticket or tickets and you know what the pot is, that you immediately begin to think to yourself, I'm going to win this. This is it. This is my, no pun intended, this is my ticket out of here. And you begin to think to yourself, what would I do with all of that? And I'm just kind of, in a very strange way, the lottery is a very, very American thing. Because that dollar that you spend, that $2, that $5, I happen to spend 10. And the ticket, the piece of paper, thermal printer paper, with those numbers on it, is just such a symbol of hope. And yet, hope combined with like, I got this. This is it. This is what's going to change my life. I don't think we do that with other things where you could possibly come into a lot of money. But we do it with the lottery. And I think that that hope is something that's uniquely American. That no matter how bad things can get, that we can remain hopeful. But here's the other side of it that I think is also very uniquely American. The desperation. That people who don't have a dollar or two or 5 or 10 play anyway. Because they believe, some of them know, it's their only way out. It's a terribly unique and American thing, for good reasons and bad. So I didn't win, which means I got to go to work tomorrow. And that's okay. Work is uniquely American. It is value. It is worth. I think maybe perhaps Americans define themselves entirely too much by work. But work is a good thing. It's a healthy thing. Do I wish I didn't have to go tomorrow? And that I could do this here with you 5 days a week, 2, 3, 4 hours a day, and make my living this way? Desperately. But that's okay. We'll all go back to work tomorrow and another week will begin. We will get through it. And then we'll be right back here again next week. Now, I have received a text from Sergeant Mack. They are not live tonight. I am mistaken. I have been plugging the program all night. And in fact, he is actually not on tonight. So my mistake. That said, it is still time for us to say good night, because I have a couple extra minutes because he's not coming on. Let me say good night to George and ask George if there is anything that you wanted to bring up, mention, make fun of me about, throw at me, yell, anything.
I can't throw anything at you. There is not a Tesla bot in the room. So, I did put in the
You did, and I should read it. You did. You read it. You found it.
About the cancer cells.
No. About the Twain quote.
Oh, the Twain quote. Yeah, Mark Twain once said, "A lie can travel halfway around the world, while the truth is still putting on its shoes."
And I think that's actually says a lot about where we are in 2024 with this election, and especially this economy. I got a very snarky comment on TikTok The economy's horrible. What the hell are you talking about? Sorry, I do know what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. And the young lady that made the comment is right in some fashion, the fashion of what I mentioned tonight. We have not still dismantled this 40 plus year libertarian nightmare experiment of just giving all the money to the rich people and trusting that they will share it with the rest of us. It's a lie. It's always been a lie. It will always be a lie. I know I've used this analogy on the program before. George will remember. Think of money. Think if money were food. What do I mean by that? If money were food, the three richest people in the United States have as much wealth as the bottom 60% of the country. 3 people. Imagine if only 3 people had the food to feed 60% of the population. And in a country of 330 million, 50% would be 15 and 15 is there's 16, probably about 180 million people. No. Yes, about 180 million. Imagine if only 3 people had all the food to feed about 180 million people. We would never stand up for it. We would storm the temple granaries. Money is no different. It is immoral. It is immoral for 3 people to have as much wealth as the bottom 60%, especially while a good portion of that bottom 60% cannot see a doctor, can't house itself, can't clothe itself, can't feed itself. It's immoral. No matter what faith you are, it's immoral. What else you got, George, before we say good night? Anything else that you thought of or that I missed? Or
Nope. I got nothing else.
excellent. Well said. Would you like to expound upon that?
Not now, maybe next week.
That's right. That's right. Well, listen, it's 9:05. We've done all the damage we can do for one night. I'm remarkably awake, except that my throat is bothering me. And even if I wanted to go till 9:30 or 10 o'clock, I don't think I could do it because my back is killing me in this chair. That said, that's the end of us, I think, for this week. I think we've done all the damage we can do. Please go to our home group Facebook page. The number of new members into our Facebook page has stagnated a bit. If you have anyone that you think might enjoy being part of our group, please invite them. And not just Randall, who has invited a lot of people. Anybody. If you think they might enjoy the group, please feel free to invite them and bring them in to share our group. We post news stories and science and environment and animal advocacy stories there all week. The things that we talk about on this program, you can find news articles about them on That Other Side of Information on Facebook. If you missed any of the program from 6 o'clock till now, as soon as we say goodnight to you and push that button, everything is right on YouTube. It's right there for you to watch all of our programs, all of them. Anything we've ever done is on our YouTube channel, which is also called That Other Side of Information. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. I still call it Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Musk can be such a nudge sometimes. I'm surprised he didn't name it XXX. That said, we are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, and we are on TikTok. It's all there. You can find us. We're not hard to find. We are planning to return next week. 7 and 7 is 14. That would make the 14th of April from 6 p.m. For everybody at the TCP Media Group for our sponsors, the Pay Give app. When you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? For everyone at hot101.net, DJ Lex, DJ Earl, and all of the super talented DJs at hot101.net, and good folks who are talented and they deserve a bit of your time. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, hot101.net. It never ends. It never goes off the air. It's always there. Check them out. For everybody at hot101.net and for everybody here associated with the program, for France, for George and Lynn, for April Riddick, Lehigh County Commissioner April Riddick, who I have not talked to in quite a while now. She is so busy being a Lehigh County Commissioner. She has taken the job seriously, as you knew she would and as elected officials should. She's working constantly. So I haven't talked to her for a while, and I need to catch up with her. For Kristen, Daisy the dog, and Guy the cat downstairs. I think he's still downstairs. He didn't come up at all during the program today. He must be mad at me. I am Jeff Kennedy, and that's it for us for tonight. Until next week, please take care of yourselves and each other. And please keep in mind, if I'm not being too preachy, the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Happen to think if we remember that a little bit more in American society, we wouldn't be quite where we are. Take care of yourselves and each other. We will see you next week. Take care.